What's up everyone, this is Minnie and welcome to my review of the new Tier 10 premium German battleship, the Mecklenburg. Before we get started with this review and gameplay footage, a quick reminder, I did receive this ship for testing as part of my CC status from Wargaming. And don't forget to like the video, make sure to leave a comment down below, and make sure to subscribe to help me keep making more great content. Now, Mecklenburg is a German battleship that is releasing in the 11.4 patch of World of Warships. This is a Tier 10 German battleship, though it has some features that make it feel less like a battleship and more like a cruiser. What I want to look at here before we go into gameplay is I just want to cover the armor layout and look at it. So some notable things with the armor as we look at it. It's got a lower superstructure than the FDG, though it is similar to the FDG in superstructure style. It's also got the stereotypical big armor belt here of the German battleships, which means that citadeling it is going to be difficult with that 275 to 350 millimeter armor there, unless you get deep underwater down there onto the 32 millimeter plating. At the bow and stern, it's got 32 millimeter plating, but it also does have a icebreaker at 70 millimeters there, and then the 19 millimeters on the superstructure and 50 millimeters on the deck and belt, which means that generally you are going to be seeing yourself eat a fair amount of damage if you take shells on the upper belt. But with that being said, let's get into gameplay footage. Now this footage is taken from a battle I played in the Mecklenburg while testing it. One important thing to note with this is the build I used here is slightly different than my final build. This was while I was still using the long-range secondaries and manual aiming control for secondary skills before I switched to a full survivability build. However, I feel that it still shows off the cons and the pros of the ship very well in how this ship will play. Now, the Mecklenburg is equipped with 16 305mm guns, giving it a lower gun than a lot of the other battleships you will see. With those guns, it gets 900 or 9400 maximum AP damage, and it gets the typical German low HE max damage of 3600, but a 27% fire chance. Mecklenburg does also come with base kilometer 8.3 kilometer secondaries, along with having 12 of them. It comes equipped with torps. The torps are 6 kilometer torps that do 13,700 per, and there are 4 torp tubes on each side in total. Comes with 2 sets of depth charge airstrikes, heal, spotting aircraft, and a defensive AA fire consumable. Mecklenburg's other big notable thing is the fact that it comes with a 2.05 sigma on the shells, meaning that you have battle cruiser dispersion instead of the standard battleship dispersion. I heard somebody in a forum thread say it looked like a German California or German Florida to them, and no, this thing is way more accurate than those ships because, for example, the Florida has a 1.7 sigma versus this thing's 2.05. But let's talk pros of the Mecklenburg as we watch through the play. Some of the pros is, first off, the 22-second reload cannot be overstated enough. Having a 22-second reload is really nice. You can be consistently getting shells off, and it makes this thing almost feel like a German Stalingrad. You get, even though you have lower overall damage, you get fairly consistent damage, as you can see, just because of the number of guns you have with that first salvo of 17,000, as long as you're aiming upper belt and you are aiming at superstructure. Beyond that, I do find that I felt I was still decently tanky in this thing because of the maneuverability of it. We'll talk about the actual health pool here in a second. Other things I really did enjoy here is even after I changed out the secondary skills in my final build, the secondaries I still have out to 10 kilometers, and they are quite a joy. They do a lot of work on enemy ships and are quite effective. I do use the HE as well, but I found that this ship tends to be really nice with the AP. You will find a fair amount of ricochets and non-pens due to the lower caliber, but it still is capable of putting out extensive damage in games. And if you want to switch to the HE and get the fires, you are more than capable of doing that. Now, some of the cons of this ship. First off, it has atrocious firing angles. The firing angles on this thing are like an FDG. They are actually an FDG. So if you want to get all 16 guns off, as you can see, I'm at a decent angle here, but I could not get all guns off to right there. I would have had to turn out more to get the guns off. Additionally, because it has that upper belt, you can get slapped in the upper belt, which is why I switched to a full survivability build. And then tied in with that is the fact that you only have 85,800 health, which is really low for a tier 10. But as you can see, when you hit the shells on a cruiser, the thing gets smashed. Now, couple other things, and you can see already there, immediately getting smashed, and you can lose a lot of health there if you make a mistake, which is why I switched this thing from a brawling build to a range build, because you can't afford to be taking the damage even with the heals and such.
Problem solved, sir.
The DFAA to me does feel a bit meh. It does its work, but it doesn't feel like something that's really, I'm like, great, I have it when I had to use it, but it didn't feel extremely strong to me. The spotter plane is nice, but with this thing already having 22-kilometer range, I didn't find myself using the spotter plane as much as you get to use it on other ships that come in with a lower range and you need to bump up. But it is a nice bonus for when you get there. And then with the depth charges, it's nice that you have the reload on them. They're standard depth charges, nothing special there. But with this ship, where I really found that I loved it is that this thing just is a high DPS beast. As I played it more and more, I found myself more and more not even worrying about upper belt and just aiming superstructure. In another game I played recently in this, I had Bow and Republics, and I was consistently hitting their superstructure for 7 to 10k every 22 seconds. So you can't aim at the bow or such, you gotta look deeper onto it, you gotta look for the superstructure. But even with the saturation, I was still doing major damage to it. Where I don't like it is the fact that it's a battleship. As you look into comp and you look to things like Warship Spring Championships, King of the Sea, even clan battles, to take this battleship, you're giving up a lot of opportunities, either in health, where you can have 20,000+ more health if you're playing a Kremlin, in caliber of gun and DPS if you take stuff like Montana's or Ohio's, or even in just general tankiness, you can give up a lot. This thing feels like a cruiser that's been mislabeled as a battleship. So if I'm looking at this thing from the perspective of, would I take this out into clan battles? Would I take this out into competitive? No, I wouldn't. But if I'm looking at this from the perspective of, would I take this into randoms? Would I take this into ranked battles? A resounding yes. This thing is so fun to play. You literally just float around kiting, spamming your guns every 22 seconds and just slapping ships. Even with the 42,000 damage hit onto the Annapolis, if you half that down or make that a quarter, I'd still be at over 50,000 damage 6 minutes into the game, and I've just been floating around. And as you note, I'm consistently doing that 7 to 13k on ships for the salvos. And so in randoms, in ranked battles, this is going to be a blast. I would have a ton of fun playing it. Now, this does lead to one of the other downsides of the ship, in my opinion, is that this is a steel ship. And to me, it lacks the uniqueness you think out of a steel ship. This feels like I said, it feels like a cruiser that's been labeled a battleship. And it doesn't have the unique aspect I usually see with steel ships. So 31,000 steel for this thing is a heavy price to pay for a ship that I'm going to be taking out mostly in randoms and ranked and not worrying about in competitive. But overall, at the end of the day, I really do enjoy this ship, and I will say that I recommend this ship. And so now we're going to watch and just analyze and some of the stuff you'll see as we go in. So if we look right now, you'll see 12,000 on 3 pens, 3 overpens, and 1 non-pen on the Minnesota. 50 shell hits, 24 pens, 20 overpens, 10 ricochets, which feels a little high. But we're already at 116,000 damage. And now I'm pushing in. So as I look at this battle, some of the things areas that I do like the ship is the ability to still deliver punishment and move around at a decent speed. You can see I'm already cresting 30 knots here as I'm moving into the middle section. Where I don't like it is if I get forced into pushing situations, because in pushing situations you can get melted. But as we watch here, you're going to see we're going to have a Minnesota here sitting at 18,000 within secondary range, even in my new build, because my new build goes out to 10 kilometers. And we're going to watch and see how the shots do as they land here. So we're going to come around this edge. You're going to see that we have to give a lot of broadside to make sure we get all the guns off because of the angles. And so even though I'm turning out, if you watch the gun here, you can see that little bit of a negative on I can't turn too much or I'll run out of area to hit the guns. And then you can see we get the 8,700, but we're going to be doing that every 20-odd seconds. One thing I forgot to mention with the secondaries do have a 32mm pen, so that does make them really nice for fighting cruisers. And you can see I can't turn in order to still get all the guns off. And so despite the battleship challenge of the fact you can't Citadel battleships at range, you gotta aim upper belt. You saw it on the Annapolis, you'll see it here on the Moscow. If a cruiser gives you broadside, it reminds me of the old days of Deadeye with a Vermont. You're just going to absolutely slap stuff. Now, we're still gonna turn, still got 2 heals, looking for more kills. As we continue to turn in, we've got to push at this point because of the fact that our team needs the advantage. We've lost this flank, so we're going to push onto this flank and look for more damage. So we see we've got the Moskva. You do have the 13.9 kilometer detection, which means you can stay mostly dark. And then I'm going to have to fight an FDR here. Of course, we can't really judge AA effectiveness off of FDRs because of the fact that it's an FDR. But you can see I'm taking that 9K salvo from the GK coming in behind me on the angle, and he's got the secondaries going for me. But one of the things I really enjoy is the reload time. I'm down to 20 seconds here at just over half health. And so I am being able to pump out shells and not worry about if I shoot, because I will have shells ready fairly quickly again. But one of the things I talked about, I love the maneuverability, because you can see I'm making the turns here, and I'm not running the turning radius, I'm just running prop mod, and you can see I'm still able to turn and outmaneuver the FDR coming in to make it so he can't get the shots on me. And so we managed to turn in and make the dodge, and then we'll be able to turn it back out afterwards to continue to dodge. We've used the DFAA. We're up to 26,000 plane damage, but like I said, it's an FDR. It doesn't really count. But we'll turn here. We'll look at the Minotaur. We'll plop the shells off on his projected path and continue to turn out as we see the Felix Sherman. And we will get the kill on to the Minnow. And so that's one of the things I really did enjoy, is the fact that it didn't matter the cruiser. I was finding consistent Citadels on it, even with the stuff that's usually hard to Citadel, like Minotaurs, like Austins. I was still getting consistent Citadels because of the fact that the gun caliber was lower and less overpens. And you can see how maneuverable this thing is, because we're gonna go full stop and we're gonna turn ourselves, and we're going to be able to make this turn and stay safe. One thing I really do wish the ship had was I do wish that the ship had a hydro. I feel like this thing with a hydro would be absolutely amazing. I would much rather have it over the spotter plane, but sadly they did not give us the opportunity to get that. But as you watch, we're going to zoom in, and here's where we're still at 40,000 health, so even with our lower health, we're still doing well until we get FDR'd. So FDR is going to drop on us, and it's just going to punch us for 5k. It's going to punch us for the fire, but the fact that he's spotting us and forcing us to use DCPs will be the end of us. Here's where I do like the spotter plane, just so I can look for that Groningen, and you'll notice we'll switch to the HE. I talked earlier about the HE and how it doesn't do as much damage. I was getting very rough salvos with the HE, so I haven't used as much. I've focused more on the AP, but you can use it to great effect against cruisers. You'll see there, I mean, 5 non-pens, I aimed a little low. We got the fire, 1100 on the pen, and now we'll look in here towards the Groningen. And this is where the firing angles really hurt me. I only get one off because I can't turn the guns in time to get the second off because of the firing angles. But 200,000, and we still got the fire ticking, so we'll tick up to about 205,000. Hope this helps you decide whether or not you think that the Mecklenburg is a good choice for your money, ladies and gentlemen. Don't forget to hit that follow button here and subscribe to the channel. Help me keep making more content. If you want to see me playing ships like this and other ships, feel free to come over to Twitch any night and ask me. And remember, my build that I have used is in the comments of this video. But thankfully, we crossed this game off with a win. Hope you enjoyed it. This is Minnie, signing off.